Good evening. The sound of a thunderstorm makes my heart skip a beat. But I am here to share with you once again some of my ghost stories. Have yourself a cup of coffee or whatever beverage of your choosing. As long as it's not poison. And sit down and come with me on this journey. This first story is about my sweet, sweet grandmother. My very beautiful grandmother. This woman will always be in my heart and my soul, my skin and my blood. I love her and miss her dearly. She had an uncle named Uncle Sandy. She loved her uncle very, very much. He was an electrician by trade. One day he got called up by his job. It was supposed to be his day off, or so I was told. Now keep in mind, this was many, many, many years ago. Oh, the sound of the storm. It gets me excited. Well, anyway, this was like in the 1930s, 1940s. Poor Uncle Sandy. He was climbing up an electrical pole. And he met his fate. And he was electrocuted. This devastated the family, but especially my granny. She loved her Uncle Sandy very, very much. Would you please excuse me? The sound of all this rain. I need to go to the restroom. I'll be right back. Uncle Sandy's passing devastated my grandmother. He was more like a daddy to her than anything else. When she was 14 years old, she met my grandfather. And they got married. And he was shipped over to WW2, World War II. My grandfather was a welder by trade. But anyway, they started having children. But sweet Uncle Sandy was watching his beloved niece from the other side of that veil. And then one night he came through that veil to pay his dear sweet niece that he loved so very much a visit. Granny said one night she heard footsteps as she lied or lay in the bed next to her husband, my grandfather. She heard footsteps and Then a creaking of the door, bedroom door. She knew she wasn't alone. She looked up from the bed, and standing at the end of the bed was her sweet Uncle Sandy, just staring at her and smiling. He did not say a word. She was startled, but yet she felt at peace. She got to see her uncle after all these years. But then the expression on Uncle Sandy's face changed when he looked at my grandfather, who was laying on his side, snoring away. Granny says, he didn't say a word, but the expression on his face was as if he was telling my grandfather, "Don't you ever touch her again. You be good to her." And then Granny said that he just vanished as he went right back through to the other side of the veil. Isn't it nice to know that our families are still watching over us from the other side? It's so very, very nice to know. We are never, ever alone. This next little story, it's about shadow people. Some people believe it's a bad omen if you see a shadow person or a shadow child. It's an omen of death that is fast approaching, which is not always the case. It was now. I have to correct myself. It was now the case when it came to my sweet Uncle Claude. About a week before his passing, about 2 years ago, I seen this large black mass pass from a bedroom door, walking down the hallway. Did not even look my way. It walked straight past where I was sitting in the living room. I looked and I seen it. It was probably about 6 foot tall, maybe a little taller, or maybe even a little shorter. But it definitely was a shadow person. It did not acknowledge me as it walked to the next room and vanished into the door. And then about a week later, my Uncle Claude went home to glory and passed from this world through the veil to the next. But in this case, and in this story, I don't believe the shadow person, child, is evil at all. Stay tuned. We lived in a house down the street from my mother. This was around the year 2000. The house had a lot of creepy things that would happen. Doorknobs moving In the middle of the night, you can hear them going back and forth as though something unseen is turning them. And you're standing there and you're watching the doorknob move. You're watching it move. And you know for a fact there's nobody awake in the house but yourself. What's on the other side of that door? You're scared to find out. But in this same house with all these eerie things, including my out-of-body experiences, which I will save for another story. I love cats. But anyway, there was this shadow child. Do I believe this shadow child was evil? No, I don't. Sometimes you could hear it running up and down the hallway. And I know it was a child about the age between 4 and 6 years old. You couldn't make out no facial features, but you knew it was a child. I remember one time I was on the phone with my grandfather. I was sitting in the living room, and I could see out of the corner of my eye the shadow child just running by as I could hear the sound of his or hers little footsteps trying to get my attention. The shadow child. I do feel my intuition as a mother myself that it was a little boy. It never caused any harm. He was just trying to get my attention. So you see, not all shadows are evil. But yes, some can be omens of things to come. So, should you be aware of a shadow person or child? Possibly. But that's my story. And I'm sticking to it. Anyhow, you have a very blessed evening. And keep on keeping on. And remember, a ghost story a day keeps the ghouls away. Let's try that again. A ghost story a day keeps the ghouls away. Oh yes. Like, subscribe, share my story, spread the word. Like the Black Plague. No, bad analogy. Like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.